The tribunal guard's fingers closed around Luna's elbow hard enough to bruise. "By order of the Moon Tribunal," the old wolf intoned, voice carrying over broken stone and wet ash, "Luna Ravencrest will submit to purging of treason issue within 3 nights, or surrender wolf right and land right in full. Take your hand off her." The command cracked through the sleet like thunder. Luna turned toward the voice before she even registered the words. A tall wolf in a soot-dark coat stood at the edge of the burned courtyard, rain striping his shoulders, jaw set like carved granite. Darius Wildfire, acting alpha of a pack that had just been half buried with its dead. His people were scattered around him, wounded, exhausted, armed anyway. The guard didn't release her. "Wildfire, this is tribunal matter, stand aside." Darius took one step forward. That was all it took. The world snapped. Not metaphorically, not poetically. It snapped. Clean, violent, absolute, as if a steel wire had been pulled through her chest and hooked straight into him. Luna gasped, air slicing her throat, palm flying to the center of her sternum where heat bloomed sharp and bright, then flooded outward in a rush that made her knees buckle. Her wolf slammed awake inside her, claws scraping, wild and frantic and suddenly, impossibly aware. Cedar smoke, storm rain, iron and winter pine. His scent hit her like memory she'd never lived. Darius stopped dead, the breath leaving him in a rough, stunned exhale. His eyes, dark a heartbeat ago, flashed molten gold ringed in black. His fingers curled once at his sides, as if he were physically restraining himself from moving toward her. The growl that rolled up his throat was low, involuntary, and directed at everyone in the courtyard but her. Luna stared at him, and her pulse went molten. No, 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 no. Her mate was dead. 3 weeks dead. Blood in snow, throat opened in a ravine while she screamed and fought and arrived too late. She still woke with that scream in her mouth. She still had his ring mark faint on her skin, where the sun had started to fade it. She was carrying his pup. Her wolf didn't care. Her wolf surged toward Darius Wildfire like it had known him all its life. Luna's vision blurred at the edges. Grief surged up first, raw and savage, then guilt so fierce she nearly choked on it. Desire tangled with terror. Instinct with revulsion at herself, and beneath all of it a deep, primal recognition that bypassed thought entirely. Mate. The word didn't come from her mind, it came from bone. Across the courtyard, Darius lifted his head a fraction, as if scenting the same impossible truth. The tendon in his neck stood out. His pupils narrowed to slits, then widened. He looked, for one naked second, not like a commander, but like a wolf struck by an arrow and refusing to fall. Cousin Darius Starfall laughed softly from beneath his umbrella. "How moving. Even in disgrace, Ravencrest bitches collect protectors." Luna flinched at the word. Darius Wildfire's growl sharpened. "Say that again," Wildfire said, voice gone rough-edged and dangerous. "And you leave here minus a tongue." Starfall's smile thinned. "You'd challenge tribunal authority over a widow carrying contested blood?" "She asked asylum on Wildfire ground." "She asked nothing," the tribunal elder cut in. "She was found at your border with stolen documents and an unverified claim. Her condition is now legal concern." The guard's grip tightened on Luna. Her wolf snapped against her skin. She could feel Darius Wildfire's attention lock onto the hand on her arm, every muscle in his body going predatory still. Then he moved. One stride, two. He put himself between Luna and the tribunal in a blur of controlled force, not touching her, not caging her, just occupying the space as if his body were a wall they would break on first. Up close, the heat coming off him was startling. Rain dripped off his hair onto his collar. His scent wrapped around her like shelter and danger both. "Release her," he said. "Or?" Darius bared his teeth, not quite a smile. Or you test how much of my restraint survived burying 19 packmates this week. The guard looked to the elder, then slowly let Luna go. She staggered once. Darius shifted a half step as if to catch her, then stopped himself, jaw flexing. Permission. He was waiting for permission he had no reason to offer. Not here, not now, not with the bond roaring between them. Luna met his gaze. Everything else dropped away. The rain, the tribunal muttering, Starfall's smug breathing. Just his eyes, bright gold at the edges, fierce and wrecked and steady on her, as if she were the only fixed point left in a collapsing world. His voice came low, shaking with effort. You are mine to protect, even if you never choose me. The words punched through her defenses harder than any threat. Not your mine to protect. Her throat burned. She hated that relief hit first, hated that some fractured part of her wanted to lean into that promise and sleep for a week while someone else held the line. Hated that she wanted anything from anyone. I didn't ask for a new bond, she whispered, hoarse. I know. I can't. She swallowed hard, one hand instinctively covering the life inside her. I can't be what your wolf wants. A flicker of pain crossed his face and vanished. Then don't be. Survive. That's enough. Behind him, Starfall clucked his tongue. Beautiful. Very theatrical. Shall we continue sentencing? Darius didn't look back. You will not sentence anyone on my ash before my counsel is present. Your counsel is dead or displaced. Then we wait for the ones still breathing. The elder lifted his staff. 3 nights. She complies, or she is stripped. The word stripped landed like a blade. Luna felt her wolf recoil, then snarl. Her nails lengthened, only a fraction. Darius smelled the spike of her panic and shifted his stance, widening it. A silent shield. Starfall stepped closer, smile all polished cruelty. I will of course accept temporary stewardship over Ravencrest assets while my dear cousin recovers from grief-induced instability. There it was. Not law. Not purity. Property. Luna's hand tightened around the oilskin packet hidden beneath her torn cloak. The ledger pages she'd stolen from Starfall's study. The pages that could burn him alive in the right court. Darius Wildfire's gaze dropped briefly to her hand, to the way she guarded whatever she carried, and then back to her face. He gave the smallest nod, like he understood there was more here than panic and pregnancy, and he would not force it out of her in front of wolves who wanted her broken. Wildfire Keep will shelter Ravencrest Luna until hearing, he said to the tribunal. Any attempt to remove her by force is an act against my pack. The elder bristled. You stake your rank on this? Darius's eyes flashed gold again. Gladly. Silence thudded down. Then the elder spat into the sleet and motioned his guards back. At dawn then, do not test the tribunal's patience. They withdrew, Starfall lingering long enough to let his gaze slide to Luna's abdomen in cold calculation before he turned away. Only when they were gone did Luna realize she was shaking. Darius still hadn't touched her. Can you walk? He asked. She almost said yes out of pride. Instead she said, I don't know. He inclined his head toward the half-standing longhouse. Then we go slow. Pain woke her like teeth. Not labor, not yet. Just a deep twisting spike low in her belly. Stress and exhaustion and 3 weeks of running cashing their debt all at once. Luna bit down on a cry and curled around herself on the pallet in the guest chamber Wildfire had given her. Hearth embers glowed red. Wind hissed through cracked shutters. For one disoriented second she expected Ravencrest medics, interrogators, tribunal handlers with binding straps. The door opened quietly. Darius stepped in carrying a mortar and pestle, sleeves shoved to his forearms, knuckles smudged green. Luna reached for the dagger she'd hidden under the blanket. He stopped immediately and lowered to one knee by the hearth, gaze dropping to the floorboards instead of her body. Moonleaf and willow bark, he said. Our healer's stitching 2 warriors and a pup with fever. I can leave it and send someone else if you prefer. She blinked at him. You made it? His mouth twitched once, grim. My mother believed alphas should know what keeps people alive when titles don't. Another pain wave hit. She hissed between her teeth. Darius shifted but didn't move closer. May I approach? The question stunned her more than the pain. Yes, she managed. He moved to the bedside with deliberate slowness, every motion telegraphed. I need to help you sit up so this doesn't burn your throat. May I touch your shoulder? She nodded. His hand settled light, warm, steady. No claim, no squeeze, no demand. Just support. He passed her the bitter brew and waited while she drank, face turned partly away to give privacy she hadn't known she needed. Her torn cloak lay draped over a chair, dark with old blood, smelling of smoke, and the ravine where her mate had died. Darius followed her glance, stood, and unfastened his own heavy cloak without a word. Cedar and rain and hearth-warm wool. He held it out. I had that one burned from my stores, he said. No charge against your pride if you take this instead. Luna stared at the offered cloth. Why are you doing this? His jaw worked. Because pain doesn't need witnesses to be real. She took the cloak. He looked relieved and miserable at once. After a moment, he crossed to the wall and tapped 3 places with 2 fingers. There are exits behind that panel, the hearth tunnel, and the roof hatch. If anyone enters this room without your permission, pull this cord. He tugged a braided line near the bedpost. Somewhere in the hall, a bell clanged once. It summons guards sworn to me, not tribunal. He set something on the bedside table, a dagger in a plain leather sheath, honed bright. Keep that under your pillow, not ceremonial, balanced for throwing at close range. She gave a short, incredulous laugh that almost turned into a sob. Most males would take advantage of a bond like this. His eyes lifted to hers at last. The gold in them had faded, leaving storm-dark restraint. Most males are cowards when given power without consequence. The room held that for a beat. Does it hurt you? She asked quietly. Holding back? Yes. The honesty hit harder than if he'd lied. He straightened. I won't touch you again unless you ask. I won't enter without knocking. If you choose to leave at first light, I'll give you escorts and supplies. No conditions. Why? Because if you stay only because you're trapped, then I'm no better than the wolves hunting you. He went to the door, paused, hand on the frame but not looking back. Sleep if you can, Luna Ravencrest. When the door clicked shut, she waited, listening for retreating footsteps. None came. Minutes later, curiosity and old survival instincts dragged her from bed. Cloak wrapped tight, dagger in hand, she padded to the crack by the hinge and looked out. Darius stood in the corridor facing away from her door, arms folded, a sentry carved from shadow, not lounging, not eavesdropping. Guarding the hall like her room held a crown no one was allowed to steal, not guarding his mate, guarding her choice. Luna slid back against the wall, breath unsteady, and for the first time since the ravine, slept without dreaming of blood. By dawn, the Moon Tribunal had erected a temporary hearing ring in the old market square. Oathstone at center, 6 armed wolves at the perimeter. Elders under white canopies kept dry while everyone else stood in mud. Luna walked in wearing Darius's cloak and her own name like armor. Murmurs followed her. Unstable. Widow should be grateful. Could have ended this quietly. She kept her spine straight. Darius Wildfire paced one shoulder behind her, close enough to intervene, far enough not to crowd. The lead elder raised a branding iron from a brazier, its crescent sigil glowing red. In refusal of voluntary compliance, the tribunal will mark restraint and proceed with compulsory procedure under emergency doctrine. 2 guards stepped toward Luna, reaching for her wrists. "No," she said, backing once. One grabbed anyway. The roar that answered shook banners. Darius shifted mid-stride, bones cracking, claws punching through fingertips, canines lengthening as his wolf surged to the surface in a half-form forbidden on sacred hearing ground. Gasps rippled through the crowd. 6 armed wolves snapped their spears up at once. He put himself in front of Luna, shoulders broad and lethal, and bared his teeth at the tribunal. "Touch her again," he growled, voice layered human and wolf. "And I start removing hands." "Wildfire!" an elder shouted. "You desecrate sacred custom. You broke it first." He didn't take his eyes off the guards. Broken War Statute, Clause 13. Widows of active bloodline killed in conflict cannot be subjected to bodily compulsion until full inheritance inquiry concludes. Clause 17. Unborn heirs are protected claim bearers, not contraband to be destroyed for administrative ease. The square went very still. The elder sneered. "Quoted by a half-ruined alpha-playing lawyer? Quoted by a wolf who still reads the laws you weaponize." A councilman in silver chains muttered, loud enough to carry. "A useless widow should kneel and thank us for mercy." Darius turned his head slowly toward him. What showed in his face made the councilman flinch back. "Say that word again," Darius said, each syllable precise, "and I will challenge you for defamation under blood oath before sunset." The councilman swallowed and looked away. The lead elder lifted his staff. "Stand down, or be named outlaw." Darius straightened to full height, then did something that ripped a murmur from every throat present. He tilted his chin up and bared the line of his throat toward the tribunal. "If blood price is required for defiance," he said, voice ringing across stone, "take mine, here, in front of every survivor who still believes this council protects more than titles." No one moved, because if they accepted, they killed the wolf currently holding together half the North. And if they refused, they admitted this was never truly law. Rain tapped the canopy edges. Somewhere, a child began crying and was hushed. Luna stared at Darius's exposed throat, at the pulse beating there, offered for her without bargain. The bond tugged, fierce, aching, but this wasn't the bond. This was character. Choice. Cost. The elder's hand trembled once around his staff before he lowered it. "Temporary stay," he bid out, "until sentencing assembly. She remains under watch." Darius let his head come down, claws still visible. "Watch from a distance." As guards retreated, one younger wolf glared at Luna and spat at her boots. Pack killer's womb. Before Luna could react, Darius was there, fingers around the guard's throat, feet barely leaving mud. The crowd jolted. "Apologize," Darius said softly, far more frightening than a shout. The young wolf clawed at his wrist. Now. Sorry." Darius released him with a shove. "Any hand raised against Luna Ravencrest is a hand raised against Wildfire Pack. Test me and find out how much grave dirt I still have patience for." No one answered. The hearing dispersed in brittle knots of silence. Luna stood motionless until the square had mostly emptied. Rain slid off her hood. Her wrists still tingled where the guards had tried to seize her. Darius approached slowly, fully human again, breathing hard from leashed fury. He stopped an arm's length away. "Are you hurt?" She looked up at him. "You offered them your throat." "Yes." "You didn't even know if I'd stay." His mouth curved, tired and rueful. "I wasn't protecting an outcome. I was protecting your right to make one." Something inside her, wound tight for weeks, loosened a fraction. Luna reached into her cloak and pulled out the oilskin packet she'd guarded through sleet and grief and threat. She held it between them. "I do have proof," she said, "against Starfall, against this whole sentence." Darius didn't snatch for it, didn't even reach. "Then we open it when you're ready." She studied him for a long moment. Then, very carefully, closed the distance by half a step. Not surrender, not acceptance, but not retreat, either. For now, she said, voice low, I'm ready to stop running alone. His eyes flashed gold once, not with hunger this time, but with something steadier. Then, Darius Wildfire said, we plan. Then, Darius Wildfire said, we plan. He led her through the ruined market and into what had once been Wildfire's council chamber, a stone room with a collapsed western wall, now patched by canvas and timber. A map table dominated the center, its surface scarred by knife marks and candle wax. 2 scouts stood watch at the doorway, mud to their knees, blood on one sleeve that wasn't his own. Darius shut the door himself. Only then did Luna set the oilskin packet on the table. Her fingers trembled once before she stilled them and unwrapped the bundle. Inside lay 6 ledger pages, folded tight and protected with waxed twine. Darius didn't touch them until she nodded. The first page was a payment index. The second, shipping manifests. The third and fourth made the room go silent. Darius read, jaw tightening. Gods. Luna stared at the same line she'd memorized while hiding in a drainage culvert outside Starfall's study. Order 7C. Rogue Suppression Sweep, Ravencrest East Ravine. Signatory, D. Starfall. Compensation dispersed to Greyfen contractors, not rogues, contracted killers. Below it, a notation in a different hand. Contingency if widow survives. Invoke blood taint statute. Section your termination witness. Transfer holdings under kin stewardship. Darius laid that page flat with careful, controlled hands. He pre-wrote your sentencing strategy. He pre-wrote my child's death sentence. He didn't deny it. The 5th page carried 2 names marked beside tribunal disbursement codes, Scribe Helen Maris and Scribe Tovin Keld. Luna had never noticed them before. Darius had. His mouth went hard. They log all hearing testimony, he said. If Starfall bought them, he can alter record entries after the fact. Make refusals look like confessions. Make objections disappear. The 6th page was worst of all. A draft letter in Starfall's seal format, unsigned but complete, linking Luna's dead mate to rogue trafficking and unauthorized breeding contracts. The allegations were absurd. The formatting was perfect. He can submit this as recovered correspondence, Darius said. With the right witnesses, it becomes legal smoke thick enough to bury truth. Luna felt cold despite the fire. I saw his sigil on the kill order, but this... She swallowed. This is architecture. He built every exit and called it law. A knock hit the door. 3 short taps, 1 long. Darius opened it to admit a broad-shouldered she-wolf with a split brow and captain's braids. She looked from him to the documents and exhaled through her teeth. Scouts from the South Road. 2 supply carts hit before dawn. Arrow fire from treeline. Disciplined formation. Hired blades. Darius's gaze sharpened. Losses? 1 dead, 3 wounded. Grain taken. Medicine burned. The captain's eyes flicked to Luna, then back. And we found this on one of the bodies. She put a coin on the table. Not pack mint. Not rogue scrap. A clean stamped contract token bearing a crescent crossed by 3 lines. Greyfen Mercenary House. Darius looked at Luna. Your cousin's second prong. She nodded numbly. If Wildfire looks unstable, they can argue I'm unsafe under your asylum. Or force relocation under tribunal custody, he said, straight into his hands. The captain, Mara, Darius called her, added, Neighbor Alphas have sent concern inquiries, 3 in 1 morning. They smell weakness. Luna almost laughed at the phrasing. Concern. Wolves, circling a bleed. Darius pulled the map close and pinned the mercenary coin over a southern pass. He promised them shares. He can't grant Ravencrest mines while your child remains a legal heir. So he has to erase the heir or erase your standing. Mara looked at Luna fully now, not unkind, only blunt. Then he won't stop at paperwork. No, Luna said, he won't. Darius gave orders in clipped bursts, split escorts, rotating sentries, duplicate every ledger page, send one copy north with a neutral courier, one east under wildfire guard, one sealed in pack vault. Mara moved like she'd expected him to say exactly this and was already halfway to executing it. At the door, she paused. Tribunal messenger at outer gate 2. Says sentencing assembly may be moved sooner. Of course. Darius dismissed her, then turned back to Luna. We have proof. But proof only matters if you stay alive long enough to present it. She drew her shoulders back. Then stop treating me like breakable glass. A flicker of heat crossed his expression. Pride, maybe. Good. Because I need your memory as much as these pages. Names, habits, who visited Starfall when he thought no one watched. She stepped to the map beside him. Their sleeves brushed barely. The bond stirred like a live wire. Fine, she said, voice unsteady for reasons that had nothing to do with strategy. Let's burn his house down with law first. By sunset, everyone in Wildfire Keep looked tired and armed. Word spread fast in hungry territories, faster when fear paid for it. By the second bell, 2 neighboring packs had formally requested temporary oversight of Luna's person pending tribunal decision. By the third, the tribunal announced sentencing assembly in 2 nights instead of 3 to preserve regional order. To preserve Starfall's timetable, Luna thought. She spent the afternoon in the archive alcove with Darius and an elderly record keeper named Fen, comparing seal impressions and ink composition against old tribunal entries. It was meticulous, maddening work. Fen muttered dates. Darius read aloud. Luna matched phrasing patterns from Starfall's correspondence to the forged draft. Every time she leaned too close over a page, she felt Darius go rigid with restraint, then carefully shift away enough to keep from crowding her. Every time she caught his scent, cedar, rain, warm iron, her wolf pushed forward, yearning and restless and disloyally alive. She hated that part, hated it, and could not kill it. At dusk, a runner arrived with a sealed parcel addressed to Luna Ravencrest, no sender marked. Ravencrest wax, broken and repressed. Her hands went numb before she opened it. Inside lay her late mate's signet ring, cracked clean down the center. For a breath, she didn't understand what she was seeing. Then the room tilted. A folded strip of parchment slid out with it. Widows don't make heirs, only leverage. DS. The archive blurred. The old grief, sharp as first blood, ripped through her chest so hard she couldn't pull air. Darius said her name once, then again, closer, but not touching. She sank onto a bench because her knees stopped obeying. He dug up a grave to send a message, she whispered. Darius took the note with 2 fingers as if it were venom. His control thinned to a visible edge. Gold ringed his irises and vanished. I will skin him. No. Her voice cracked. Not yet. That's what he wants. You lunging. You losing control in public. Darius closed his eyes once, hard, then opened them storm-dark and cold. You're right. She stared at the broken ring in her palm. He's telling me he can reach me anywhere. He can reach paper, Darius said. Not you. He just did. The silence stretched. Outside, the keep groaned under wind and hammer blows as workers rebuilt walls before dark. Inside, Luna pressed the 2 halves of the ring together and felt how they no longer aligned. Darius crouched to her eye level, careful, all sharp violence leashed for her sake. Luna, look at me. She did. Starfall wants you destabilized before assembly, wants you grieving in public so elders call you unfit. His voice stayed low, steady. He doesn't get your center. Not tonight. Her laugh was bitter. Where exactly is my center supposed to be? A muscle jumped in his jaw. Wherever you decide it is. Rage, grief, strategy. I don't care. Just don't hand him your will. She breathed in, out, in again. The pup shifted low, a flutter, then a firm kick. Alive, insistent. Luna closed her fingers around the broken metal and nodded once. Then he gets nothing. Pressure mounted from every angle after that. A rumor broke at evening meal that Luna had confessed blood treason in private council. False, obvious, but useful. Darius shut it down in the hall with 3 sentences and a stare that sent the whisperer to scrubbing duty for a week. A second rumor followed. Wildfire intended to crown Luna immediately and merge packs by bond compulsion. Also false. Also useful to anyone wanting unrest. 2 young warriors challenged a sentry shift, claiming they wouldn't die for a Raven Crest scandal. Darius relieved them of weapons and assigned them to perimeter trench under Captain Mara without raising his voice. Luna watched all of it and understood, finally, that Starfall's genius wasn't merely cruelty. It was distributed pressure. Legal, social, military, emotional. None fatal alone, all exhausting together. And beneath it, attraction kept building like a storm behind her ribs. When Darius passed too near, her pulse jumped. When he left the room, part of her tracked him anyway. When he spoke her name, her wolf lifted its head. She feared that almost as much as Starfall. Near midnight, after copying the last ledger page by hand, she found Darius in the courtyard issuing patrol routes. He looked carved hollow by duty and refusal. Still, when he saw her swaying from fatigue, he ended the briefing in 10 words and walked her toward the longhouse at a respectful distance. Halfway there, she said, "If this bond makes me weak, tell me now." He stopped under a half-built arch. "It doesn't. It distracts me. It reminds you you're not alone." She looked away toward the black line of trees beyond the wall. "Sometimes those are the same thing." "Sometimes," he agreed. "But I'd rather be your distraction than your silence." She couldn't answer that. Not then. Later, when the keep finally quieted, sleep refused her. Luna climbed to the roof walk above the den ring, wrapped in Darius's cloak, broken signet heavy in her pocket. The moon was a blurred coin behind cloud. Below, banked fires glowed between rebuilding crews and grave markers. She heard him before she saw him, boots on stone, measured, unhurried. "I can leave," Darius said from the stairmouth. "Stay," she replied, surprising herself. He came to stand beside her at the parapet, a full arm's length between them. Wynne lifted a strand of his hair. He didn't brush it back. For a while they just watched workers setting new beams where the old nursery had burned. Luna spoke first. He was kind. Her voice barely carried. "My mate. Not perfect, stubborn, loud when he laughed. He carved little wolves out of scrap wood and hid them where I'd find them after arguments." Darius listened without interruption, eyes forward. "I keep waiting to wake up before the ravine," she said. "Before blood and snow and that sound he made when—" She cut off, throat closing. Darius's hand tightened on the stone. "You don't have to spare me the ugly parts." "I'm not sparing you. I'm drowning in them." A beat of silence. Then, very quietly, "I buried my sister with my own hands last week. Couldn't shift because the silver in her wounds kept burning even after death. We had no shroud left dry enough, so I wrapped her in my patrol cloak." Luna turned toward him, startled. He met her eyes. No performance, no attempt to compare griefs. Just truth offered where she'd offered hers. "I say that," he continued, "because I don't mistake survival for healing. You can choose me one day, never choose me, hate this bond until your last breath. I'll still stand where I said I'd stand." The wind went sharp. Luna's eyes burned. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "Not of Starfall. Of wanting anything again. of betraying what I lost. Darius shook his head once. Love is not a grave with one name carved in it. Something in her chest cracked. Not breaking. Opening. She lifted a hand halfway, hesitated. If I ask for touch, and then panic. I stop. Immediately. Immediately. She closed the distance by a single step. Then, hold my hand. His inhale caught. He offered his hand palm up, waiting. When she placed hers in it, heat flooded the bond. Less wildfire now, more hearth. Steady. Breathing. His grip was firm and careful, thumb resting still until she curled her fingers tighter in permission. They stood like that for a long time, two wolves over ruins and rebuilding, grief and desire braided into something neither of them named. At last, Luna guided his hand, slowly, to the curve of her abdomen. The pup kicked against his palm. Darius went utterly still. Wonder hid his face so naked it almost undid her. "Hello, little one," he whispered, voice ragged. Luna laughed softly through tears she didn't bother hiding. "You sound terrified." "I am," he said, "of failing both of you." "Then don't." He looked at her, and this time she didn't look away. Their foreheads touched, brief, gentle, no claim, just connection. And for one suspended breath, the world narrowed to warmth and pulse, and the impossible fact of being alive. Then the alarm bell screamed, 1 strike, 2, 3. Rapid, urgent, wrong. Darius was moving before the third note finished. Inside, now. Smoke hit them on the stair. By the time they reached the courtyard, fire had already caught the east storage sheds, flames climbing dry beams in bright, hungry sheets. Wolves ran buckets. Children were being herded toward the lower tunnels. Over the roar came the hiss of arrows. "Tree line!" someone shouted. "South wall!" Mercenaries in dark leathers poured through a breached postern gate. Not many. 8, maybe 10, but coordinated, targeting chaos points. Granary, infirmary corridor, gate winch, organized mercenaries, formation fighters. Darius shifted half-form on the run, claws out, and dropped the first attacker before the man's blade cleared its sheath. "Mara, seal inner ring!" Luna drew the plain dagger from her belt, the one he'd left under her pillow, and ducked behind a stone trough as an arrow shattered against it. A masked wolf vaulted the low wall near her, silver spike in hand, eyes locked not on her throat, but lower, her belly. She moved before fear could freeze her, sidestep, slash, pivot exactly as Ravencrest training had drilled into every heir expected to survive coups. The dagger bit his forearm. He snarled and lunged anyway. Darius roared her name. He hit the attacker from behind, but the silver spike still carved a line across Luna's side as she twisted away. Hot pain, shallow, but searing. She gasped, hand flying to her ribs, cloak wetting fast. Darius broke the mercenary's wrist with a crack and drove him face first into stone. Across the courtyard, another assailant hurled a clay flask into the archive alcove. It burst in oil fire. Fenn's records went up like dry leaves. "No!" Luna staggered toward it instinctively. Darius caught her shoulders, first touch without asking, because there was no time, and hauled her back as a beam collapsed where she'd been standing. "Proof matters if you're breathing!" A horn blared at the main gate. Not wildfire signal. A sentry came sprinting through smoke, coughing blood. "Tribunal riders, 50 at least, white banners. They demand immediate transfer of Luna Ravencrest under emergency custody for public safety violations." Of course they'd come now, during fire, during attack, with legal wording polished and witnesses ready. Mara skidded in, blade red to the hilt. "We can hold mercenaries or tribunal, not both. Pick." Luna swayed. The cut at her side burned like acid where silver had kissed skin. Cramping twisted low in her abdomen, sharp and sudden. She doubled over with a strangled sound. Darius caught her before she hit the stones. Healer! Now! The healer dropped beside them, pressed trembling fingers to Luna's pulse, then to her belly. Her face drained. She's bleeding. Stress contraction starting. Move her, and you risk losing the pup. At the gate, tribunal horns sounded again, closer, insistent, official. Darius looked toward the smoke-choked entrance where white banners snapped above armored ranks, then back to Luna, shaking in his arms, blood seeping through his fingers. The bond between them went tight as wire. Outside, the tribunal commander's voice boomed over the chaos. By order of the Moon Tribunal, surrender the widow immediately, or be declared in rebellion. By order of the Moon Tribunal, surrender the widow immediately, or be declared in rebellion. The words rolled over the burning keep like another wave of smoke. Luna gripped Darius's forearm hard enough to feel tendon under skin. Blood from the silver cut at her side soaked through her fingers, hot and slippery. The healer pressed a wad of bitter-smelling moss to the wound and cursed under her breath. "Silver trace," she snapped. "Not deep, but enough to inflame. She needs rest, not transport. If they drag her now, you'll have a dead air before dawn." Darius's eyes went flat and lethal. "Mara," he barked, "seal inner gate. No one opens without my command." A horn answered from outside, then another. White tribunal banners loomed beyond the smoke at the main gate, their edges bright and obscene against the firelight. Wolves in ceremonial armor stood shoulder to shoulder with spear guards, while wildfire warriors bled in mud. A third voice rose from the gate, smooth, amplified by the stone funnel of the courtyard. "Cousin," Darius Starfall called, "must we add sedition to your list of crimes tonight?" Luna's stomach clenched harder than the contraction. She knew that voice in her bones, polished cruelty wrapped in legal silk. Darius shifted to stand, but Luna caught his wrist. "Wait." He looked down, ragged breath sawing in and out as he fought his wolf. "He's here." "I know." She forced herself upright against the healer's protest. Pain speared her side and radiated low through her belly, but she stayed on her feet. Darius held her gaze. "I can get you out. Hearth tunnel to the north cut. Horses are staged at the Birch Pass. We disappear before dawn and take this to the king directly." The plan was already built. Of course it was. He'd prepared escape before she ever asked. Outside, Starfall spoke again. "I have emergency warrants for unlawful harboring, assault on tribunal personnel, and destruction of court records. Deliver Luna Ravencrest now, and I may recommend lenience for Wildfire Pack." Lenience, while his mercenaries still lit their food stores. Luna tasted ash and rage. She straightened, hand over the life inside her. "Open the gate for parley," she said. Darius stared at her like she'd suggested stepping into a trap. "It is a trap," she said. "But not tonight. He wants me dragged out screaming. He wants witnesses to say I was hysterical and unstable before sentencing. He'll lie anyway. Then let him lie to my face." For one heartbeat, he looked ready to refuse. Then he gave a clipped nod and signed to Mara. The main gate opened a narrow span. Starfall entered beneath white banner immunity, flanked by 2 tribunal elders and 6 guards. He wore rain-dark velvet untouched by soot, silver wolf head clasp gleaming at his throat. Not a drop of blood on him, not even from other people. His gaze found the bandage at Luna's side and brightened. "There she is," he said lightly. "And in such obvious danger. How fortunate I arrived in time." Darius stepped between them. "You arrived with 50 armed riders while mercenaries attacked my keep. Correlation, not conspiracy, acting alpha." Starfall spread his hands. "Chaos follows tainted claims." Luna laughed once, short and vicious. "Did you practice that in a mirror? Or does treason improvise itself?" His smile thinned. "You are in no condition to speak before court." "Then why are you in such a hurry to get me there?" One elder lifted a scroll. Emergency transfer order. Void, Darius snapped, under broken war widow protection. Overridden by public safety clause. Starfall tilted his head. You see, cousin? Law is so flexible when properly interpreted. Luna stepped around Darius before anyone could stop her. The movement made black spots flash in her vision, but she kept walking until she stood directly across from Starfall in the smoke-striped courtyard. You sent me my mate's broken ring, she said. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, quick, then gone. A sentimental keepsake returned to rightful family. You cracked it. Grief is clumsy. Darius lunged. Mara caught his arm at the last second. His claws flashed half out, then retracted with effort violent enough to shake him. Starfall watched, pleased. There's the instability the tribunal is worried about. Luna bent, picked up a fallen clay shard blackened by fire, and pressed it into the blood at her side until it ran wet and bright. Then she drew a straight line down the center of Starfall's white sleeve. He froze. Now you wear what you bought, she said quietly. Guards surged forward. Darius stepped in with a snarl that made 3 of them falter. The elder raised his staff. Enough. Sentencing at first light in the Moonstone Arena. Failure to appear will be taken as confession and forfeiture of all claim lines. Starfall looked at Luna as he backed toward the gate. Do come, cousin. I'd hate to strip you in absentia. Luna met his eyes and smiled without warmth. I'll be there. Bring your real handwriting. When they were gone and the gate slammed shut, her knees buckled. Darius caught her this time without asking, hauling her against his chest as another contraction ripped through her. She bit his shoulder to keep from crying out. Inside, he ordered. Now. As they moved toward the infirmary, he bent his head to her ear. We can still take the tunnel. Luna's breath hitched, then steadied. No, she whispered. Tomorrow I walk in through the front. Dawn came iron gray and unforgiving. The east sheds were still smoking. Half the archive was ash. Wildfire warriors stood in rows anyway, mud on their boots and grief in their jaws. Darius met Luna at the longhouse threshold, already armored, hair tied back, eyes shadowed from no sleep. Behind him, the hearth panel stood open, revealing the narrow escape tunnel slanting into dark. Last chance, he said. Luna looked at the tunnel, then at the main gate where tribunal banners waited in the distance like teeth. She reached into her cloak and touched the sealed packet at her ribs. Ledger pages, mercenary coin, copy of Starfall's forged letter, and the 2 halves of a broken ring wrapped in cloth. I'm done being smuggled, she said. Darius nodded once and shut the panel. They walked side by side through the main gate into a city already funneling toward the Moonstone Arena. The arena sat in the old central basin, ringed by carved stone tiers and ancestral totems slick with rain. Wolves packed every level, survivors, rivals, elders, scavengers for spectacle. At the center stood the Oath Stone, black granite veined with moon quartz, old enough to remember kings. Starfall waited at the tribunal dais in silver-trimmed white, one hand resting theatrically on a legal codex. Scribes Helen Maris and Tovin Keld sat at lower desks, reed pens poised. Luna saw them both and felt cold clarity settle over her like armor. The lead elder struck his staff. Luna Ravencrest, charged with bloodline contamination, refusal of lawful purging, incitement of pack violence, and fraudulent claim. I invoke right of blood witness, Luna said. The words cut clean through the arena noise. The elder blinked. Denied. You are physically compromised. I invoke right of blood witness under Oathstone Precedent 41 and 72. Her voice rose, steady despite the pain clawing her side. I bring material evidence of contracted murder and tribunal bribery. Denial constitutes obstruction of blood law. Murmurs rippled hard through the tiers. Some wolves rose to their feet. Starfall's mask cracked for the first time. She is grieving and unstable. This is theatrics. Luna turned to the crowd. Theatrics is calling my unborn child contraband while signing kill orders in Family Inc. She unwrapped the first ledger page and held it high. Darius did not speak, did not step in, just stood at her back like a wall and let her own voice carry. Order 7C, Rogue Suppression Sweep, East Ravine. Payment dispersed to Grayfen contractors. She threw the page onto the oath stone where attendants rushed to retrieve it. My mate died in that ravine. Second page, contingency notation. If widow survives, invoke blood taint statute, secure termination witness, transfer holdings to kin stewardship. Third and fourth, names of bribed scribes and disbursement codes. Helen Maris went white. Tovin Keld dropped his pen. The elder slammed his staff. Forgery! Then let the stone judge, Luna said. She stepped to the oath stone, placed her bleeding palm flat on the moon quartz vein, and inhaled once, through her teeth. The blood witness rite was old and brutal. Memory dragged from flesh and projected in truth light. Most wolves feared it. Most she-wolves were forbidden it by custom, not law. By blood witnessed, Luna said, voice roughening as power caught, I submit memory of the night of East Ravine and the sigil on the order sent. The stone flared. Light erupted from beneath her hand in a silver-blue sheet, climbing into the air above the arena like water held upright. Then images bled across it. Snow, dark pines, men moving in disciplined formation, not rogues, but hired hunters in marked straps. Her mate shouting. Steel. Blood in white drifts, a gloved hand passing a sealed order near firelight. Wax impressed with Starfall's sigil, half-moon pierced by a line. Gasps thundered through the tears. Luna swayed as the memory tore through her body twice. Once in recollection, once in projection. Darius's hand hovered near her back, but never touched. Starfall stepped forward, face taut. Fabricated. She could have seen any seal. Then touch the glyph, Luna said. An attendant set the memory glyph plate on the stone, still glowing from her oath. Law required disputing parties to confirm or deny under contact. Refusal read as admission. Starfall backed half a step. This is irregular. Luna smiled, feral and exhausted. So is murdering your cousin's mate. He spun toward the elders. Stop this. And reached for the pages to scatter them. Luna moved first. She shifted in controlled partial form, bones rippling under skin, claws punching through fingertips. A collective roar broke from the crowd as she slammed Starfall's wrist to the oath stone, pinning him with a strength born of fury and bloodline. He snarled, tried to twist free, and she bared her teeth inches from his face. Touch. The glyph. You mad bitch. She drove his hand down. Light seared up his arm in a crackling line. The oath glyph burned black where his skin met stone. Starfall screamed. The arena exploded in shouts. Liar burn. By blood law. Traitor. Luna released him and staggered back, chest heaving, side bleeding through the bandage. But the balance had shifted. She was no longer a widow at a sentencing. She was a claimant proving treason in open law where everyone could see. Starfall clutched his scorched hand, eyes wild now, civilized veneer gone. You think this wins? He hissed. It starts, Luna said. Everything happened in one savage heartbeat. Starfall's good hand vanished inside his sleeve and came out with a narrow silver spike. Not ceremonial, not legal, just murder honed to a point. He lunged straight for Luna's abdomen. If the air dies, he spat, the line dies with it. Darius hit him from the side like a battering ram. The spike glanced off Darius's vambrace, skittering across stone. Wolves surged in all directions. Guards shouted conflicting orders. Starfall clawed for the weapon, but Darius drove him down hard enough to crack the edge of the dais. They grappled in mud and blood before the oath stone, both half-shifted, snarling, every motion animal and trained. Starfall fought dirty, gouging for eyes. Darius answered with brutal precision, locking his elbow, wrenching, forcing the arm behind his back until tendons screamed. "Stand down!" an elder shouted uselessly. Luna saw the silver spike spinning near her boots. She snatched it up and stepped in close, ignoring the fire in her side. By the time Starfall twisted free enough to rise to one knee, she was there with the blooded point under his jaw. "Don't," she said. Starfall froze, chest pumping. Rain started again, fine needles hissing on hot stone. Darius stayed crouched at Starfall's flank, one hand fisted in his collar, ready to break him if she gave the word. Luna pressed the spike harder until a bead of blood welled. "You killed my mate for a title you were never worthy to carry." Starfall's lip curled. Even now, at knife point, he sneered. "Power belongs to the wolf willing to take it." A new voice answered from the arena entrance, deep as winter thunder. "And judgment belongs to the one bound to enforce blood law." Every head turned. The Alpha King stepped onto the moonstone in black ceremonial leathers, crown absent but authority radiating off him like heat. His escort parted behind him, and even the tribunal elders dropped to one knee too slowly to hide panic. The king's gaze swept the oath stone, the projected memory remnants, Starfall's lyre burn, the silver spike at Luna's hand. "Who invoked blood witness?" he asked. Luna did not kneel. "I did." Luna Ravencrest. "Who challenged witness and failed glyph?" Starfall spat blood. "This is political." The king didn't look at him. "Answer." 100 voices roared from the tiers. "Starfall." The king nodded once. "Then sentence is mine." 2 royal wardens hauled Starfall to his feet. He thrashed, but Darius released him only when the wardens had iron grips on both arms. The king faced the tribunal dais. "Elders Kale, Varen, Jost, you accepted emergency compulsion against protected widow status, attempted unlawful seizure during active attack, and suppressed blood evidence. Strip your chains." They stared, stunned. "Now." Hands shaking, they removed their crescent chains and laid them on the wet stone. The king ground one under his heel until it snapped. "Helen Maris, Tovin Keld," he called. The 2 scribes were dragged forward, sobbing. "For altered record intent and bribery under oath office, rank revoked. 10 years ledger labor on border dead roll." Then he turned to Starfall. "Darius Starfall, of Ravencrest line. Convicted by blood witness of contracted kin murder, attempted heir killing and sedition through court corruption. Under King's mandate, your wolf is severed. Your life is spared for labor exile among the border dead." For the first time, true fear hit Starfall's face. "No," he said, voice cracking. "Kill me instead." The king's expression did not shift. "You don't command terms here." He set his palm to Starfall's brow and spoke the old unmaking words in a language older than Pax. Moonlight, though the sky was clouded, seemed to gather in a thin white ring around them. Starfall screamed as if flayed from the inside. The sound went on, then cut off abruptly. When the king removed his hand, Starfall collapsed boneless and fully human, scent flattened, wolf presence gone like a snuffed flame. He made a broken noise and curled inward, shaking. The king looked to the wardens. "Take him." They dragged Starfall from the arena alive, heels leaving twin tracks in rainwater and blood. Silence held for 1 breath, 2. Then the king turned back to Luna and Darius. "Luna Ravencrest," he said, voice carrying to the highest tier. "Your testimony is upheld. Your standing is restored. Your child is recognized as lawful heir under Ravencrest claim lines and protected under Crown law." He lifted his chin toward the crowd. Let this be heard across Allied territory. Coercive wolf stripping or bodily compulsion over pregnancy refusal is henceforth a capital abuse. Any alpha, elder, or tribunal officer who attempts it answers to me. The arena erupted. Some wolves howled approval, some looked sick, some calculated new loyalties in real time. Darius stepped to Luna's side, not in front of her, and when she swayed, she let him steady her with a hand at her elbow. For once, nobody reached to take that choice from her. Night found them back at Wildfire Keep, though Keep was still more scaffolding than fortress. The fires were out. The dead were counted. The living slept in shifts. Luna stood in the rebuilt den ring where the roof had finally been cleared enough to show a slice of clean moon. New timber smelled sharp and resinous. Somewhere close, someone hammered the last peg into a support beam and then left them alone. Darius waited a few paces away, stripped of armor, throat bare. No guards, no elders, no law but what they chose now. He held out a small blade, hilt first. If you want the bond quieted, we can ask the king's healer for suppressants until after birth. If you want distance, I move to the outer barracks tonight. Luna almost smiled. Even here, he offered exits first. I don't want suppressants, she said. And I don't want distance. His breath caught. She stepped closer until she could feel his heat. I want this chosen. Not forced by instinct, not demanded by politics. Chosen by me. Darius bowed his head. Tell me how. Her pulse thudded in her throat. Fear was still there. Of grief, of change, of wanting. But it no longer ruled her hands. Offer first, she said, voice low, like equals. He nodded once, then did exactly what she'd asked. Tilted his head, bearing the strong line of his neck and shoulder, hands open at his sides, body still except for the visible beat of pulse. Luna Ravencrest, he said quietly, rough with reverence. May I mark you as my mate? She looked at him for a long moment, taking in every scar, every restraint, every time he had chosen her will over his hunger. Yes, she whispered. You may. He moved in slowly enough for her to stop him at any point. His hand rose, paused near her waist. She nodded. He settled his palm there, steadying, and bent to the junction of her neck and shoulder. His teeth pierced skin in a controlled, deliberate bite. Pain flashed bright and sharp, then melted, flooding outward in a wave of heat that hit her spine, her belly, the base of her skull. She gasped against his shoulder as her wolf surged up, not fighting this time, but opening to it. The bond snapped tighter, then gentled, turning from a storm wire into something deep and anchored. Through it came a rush of him. Fierce protectiveness, hard-earned tenderness, a vow without words. Mine, his wolf breathed across the link. Not possession, but devotion. Luna's knees went weak. Darius's arm tightened around her, holding her upright until the trembling passed. He licked the mark once, soothing, then drew back with pupils blown wide and jaw clenched as he fought to keep control. Still with me? He asked, voice ragged. She touched the fresh mark, wincing at the sting that already hummed with warmth. Very much. His forehead dropped to hers. They breathed together, shaky and laughing under it from sheer relief. My turn, she said. His eyes flashed gold and he straightened, offering his throat again without hesitation. Always. Luna gripped his jaw, thumb at the hinge, fingers in his hair. She let herself look at him fully, war leader, shelter, stubborn man who had stood in doorways and halls and arenas and never once tried to own her. Darius Wildfire, she said, may I mark you as my mate? A rough, helpless smile broke across his face. Gods, yes. She bared her teeth and bit over the pulse at his throat, hard enough to draw blood, deliberate enough to leave no doubt. He groaned, hands flexing at her hips but not tightening until she leaned into him. The taste of iron and cedar and rain hit her tongue. Pain sparked, then flipped hot, pleasurable, electric down her arms and into her center as their wolves collided and finally settled. Yours, she sent back, fierce and sure. The bond completed in a rushing surge that nearly dropped them both. Memory fragments, emotion, scent, heartbeat, grief acknowledged and held rather than erased. She felt his sorrow for his sister like a distant bruise. He felt the hollow where her first mate's loss still lived, and instead of jealousy there was space, respect, and a protective ache that wrapped around both her and the life inside her. Mate, both wolves said at once, and this time the word felt like home, not a trap. They clung to each other, foreheads pressed, breaths mingling in cool moonlight. Darius kissed the corner of her mouth, then her temple, then the mark on her shoulder as if sealing an oath. No one will ever decide your body for you again, he whispered. Luna slid her hand up the back of his neck, fingers resting over the mark she'd left. Then stand with me while I decide our future. Every step. He lowered them both to the den furs near the hearth ring, not with urgency but with care, wrapping her in his cloak and his body's heat. They lay tangled, listening to each other's heartbeats align through the new, settled bond, no longer jagged, no longer wild with denial. Just steady. Present. Mine, he murmured sleepily against her hair. She smiled into his chest. Yours. And under her palm their pup kicked once, as if in agreement. 3 days later, the central courtyard of Wildfire Keep was crowded again, this time with builders, healers, widows carrying bundles, orphaned pups clinging to older siblings, and pack leaders who had come to witness law put into stone. A fresh carved sign hung over the rebuilt gate. Ravencrest Wildfire Sanctuary. Luna stood on the raised platform in dark blue leathers tailored around her pregnancy, the Luna crescent newly fastened at her throat beside Ravencrest silver. Darius stood at her right in War Leader black, marked throat visible, his hand warm at the small of her back. On her left stood Captain Mara in formal braids, promoted chain bright against her scarred brow. Old Fen hovered near the records table, clutching a new ledger like it might catch fire if he blinked. The Alpha King's herald unrolled a scroll. By King's decree and blood witness ruling, he proclaimed, Luna Ravencrest is confirmed Guardian Alpha of the Ravencrest Wildfire Merged Sanctuary, with full land right, pack right, and inheritance authority. Darius Wildfire is confirmed co-alpha and war leader under shared command, not superseding said authority. A murmur, then a thud of fists to chests from Wildfire ranks. The herald continued. The unborn child of Luna Ravencrest is entered in Crown Registry as lawful heir to Ravencrest and Wildfire claim lines. Darius exhaled like he'd been holding breath for days. Luna squeezed his fingers once. Further, the herald read, coercive wolf stripping or compelled pregnancy termination is recognized as capital abuse across allied packs. Enforcement falls under Crown mandate. At that, a she-wolf in the front row, young, thin, carrying a toddler on one hip, covered her mouth and started to cry. Another widow put an arm around her shoulders. Luna stepped forward to the edge of the platform. This sanctuary is for wolves who were told they were expendable, she said, voice carrying clear. Widows, orphans, displaced packmates, fighters too injured to be useful to greedy alphas. Here, no one trades your body for a treaty. No one rewrites your grief into guilt. She looked toward the gate, where a fresh convoy entered. Medicine carts under neutral guard, grain sacks stamped with royal seal, and behind them, 20 displaced wolves from the south pass. Dirty, wary, alive. You come in with your own names, Luna said. You keep them. Mara barked an order. Builders lifted beams into place over a new dormitory frame. Fen opened his ledger and called out intake numbers in a voice that shook, but did not fail. 2 former tribunal guards, now stripped and reassigned, hauled stone under supervision, eyes down. At the rear of the courtyard, a caged prisoner cart rattled past under warden escort. Inside, Starfall sat shorn, unmarked by Wolf, staring at nothing as they took him north to border labor. He did not look up. Luna watched him go and felt no triumph, only an end. Darius leaned close. "You all right?" She nodded. For the first time in a long time. When the formalities ended, they walked the perimeter together while hammers rang and pups chased each other through stacks of timber. One little boy nearly collided with Luna's knees, froze in horror, then offered her a crooked wooden wolf figurine with missing paint. "For the baby," he whispered. Luna took it carefully. "Thank you." At the half-built wall overlooking the valley, she stopped. Below, old burn scars cut through the trees, but new roofs were rising between them. Smoke from cook fires drifted straight and calm. Darius came up beside her, shoulder to shoulder. "No running," he said softly. She looked down at their joined hands, at the matching marks at throat and shoulder, at the courtyard where people built instead of buried. "No," Luna answered. "I'm home." He kissed her temple. In the bond, warm and steady as hearthstone, came one final word: mate. She sent it back with a smile. And below them, under a clean afternoon moon, the walls kept rising.